Well, it tells me I'm live. Um, so, I'm not very good at this. The fact that I'm even here at all. Anyhow, anin, neskozikwe, ni dig, ojibwemo, adik, songab, dudab. I see your spirit. I am the red woman, an Ojibwe person from the Adik Songab standing reindeer clan, or moose clan, or caribou clan, hoofed animal clan. And I wanted to come on especially to acknowledge all the well wishes that I've been given. Um, it's been a very difficult week, but I'm back. Can't get rid of me that easily. Um, what happened was last Sunday night, I started having chest pains. And I've been in atrial fibrillation since February. Went to the cardiologist. He didn't give me any interventions. So I referred myself elsewhere for interventions. And in the meantime, as you know, been traveling and doing the conferences and teaching. And the problem for me on Sunday was that in addition to the atrial fibrillation, which is a type of heart arrhythmia, my heart also went into what's called, excuse me, I have to read it, rapid ventricular response, which means not only was my heartbeat irregular, it was extremely rapid. My resting heart rate was in the 120 to 30 range, and that is not sustainable. That is stroke and heart attack area. So it subsided a bit late Sunday night. Monday, woke up feeling fine, and then was trying to get around, and it started again. And this time I couldn't stand up on my own. My legs kept cratering underneath me. Fading to black, wanting to faint, shaking myself up. And I heard a still small voice. And those of you that are spiritually inclined will understand this. It said, "You're going to die if you don't get help." And I kind of went, well, that's a slap in the head by God if I ever had one. So I made it to my bathroom, which I'm in a senior apartment, and it has an automatic pull cord that goes straight to EMS, and I pulled it. And I sat down in my wheelchair, opened the front door, and waited for them. Within 10 minutes, they were here. And put the 12 lead on me and rushed me lights and sirens to the hospital, feeding me baby aspirin so I wouldn't have a heart attack. So it was kind of scary. The first day I was in the hospital, all they did was trying to slow my heart rate down. They intravenously were pumping me with metoprolol, type of medication that's supposed to control your heartbeat. And after a day, that seemed to bring it down to the 90, which is still high, but at least it was within high normal range. And then the next day, they gave me what's called a cardioversion, something like that. Cardioversion, yeah. Which means they basically go in through your mouth, look at your heart, and if there's no blood clot, because they were worried about that, they give you a cardioversion, which is basically a series of shocks to bring your heart into normal rhythm, which it did. So that left me a little worn out for a couple of days, and I had to stay in the hospital an extra day until I got my sea legs under me. It was a very nice hospital stay, I have to say. It's a new wing, main medical center. The nurses were wonderful. My bed talked to me. All of the newest, latest equipment. What I mean by my bed talked to me is it was set. I wasn't allowed to get up by myself because my legs were kind of shaky. So I had to call a nurse anytime I had to get up or go to the bathroom or anything, which as older people know is quite often. And one time I didn't even get up. I was just shifting my weight like this, trying to sit up a little bit, and the bed said, "Stop! Don't get up. A nurse is coming. Stop! Don't get up." It went on like that till the nurse got there and shut it off. I'm like, geez, a tattletale bed. So, anyhow, I got home late Thursday and slept a good part of Friday. Yesterday felt a little more human, and today kind of almost back to normal. I wouldn't say completely. But prognosis, if I make some lifestyle changes, if I limit the stress. Stress is one of the main causes of this type of event, whether it be chronic or immediate. You've heard stories probably of immediate stress like an earthquake and people have heart attacks. Mine was more on the chronic scale. I've known since December that certain things weren't right or kosher, and some massive changes were needed. But trying to find a right time, I guess there really isn't a right time. And then in Pennsylvania at the conference there, as some of you are aware, my sister passed away. And as I was at the conference, and so I was trying to balance my needs at the conference with my needs to be with my family. That didn't work out so well. So on that Monday, I guess it all came to a head. I realized I just sort of literally collapsed brokenhearted for many reasons. Literally, I take things literally. And since then, I've had plenty of time and evidence to reevaluate my time and place in my life. So one of the things I've done is I've resigned from my tribal roles and involvement because the truth is I can no longer make those kinds of conferences and keep up with those schedules. The travel's hard on me. I'm always getting flagged by TSA. And it's just not what I need to be doing right now. However, I'm not going away. I am just going to keep in the background more. And I'm just praying to Geechee Manitou about how to direct my life or how he wants it directed at this point in time. He obviously keeps me alive for a reason. So I will pay attention to what he tells me. In the meantime, I wanted to give you a little bit of background because what I'm going to teach today is on part 3 of the feather teaching. And the quote that I came up with for this teaching is, "I won't be the sacrificial lamb on the altar men worship themselves on." That sounds pretty harsh. Well, it's been pretty harsh. And I'll tell you a little of my history, and you can see where it's coming from, because it's not just from recently, it's cumulative. I did my master's degree in California. I finished it in 1990. I wrote my thesis on a feminist paradigm for Christian counseling. And by feminist, I don't mean the political feminism. I mean, you know, from the women's point of view. Um, because what I was seeing in the school I was in was a Christian school. It was run by Jesuit priests and others. And I mean, it was a wonderful education, really, combining theology and psychology. It was really uh, quite astounding, and I appreciate that education. So when I wrote my thesis, I wasn't sure how it was going to be received, and it was difficult to write because there weren't many Christian books on the women's historical perspective and what happened in actual biblical times. There was a whole lot of books on how Christian women should behave and what they should do and all that, but a lot of it goes against what Scripture tells us, at least from where I sit. So it was well received. Father Serbo, who was the head priest, passed me with flying colors. So I felt empowered, you know, to go forth with that ministry, because you are then ordained into a ministry. And so after that, I spent my time developing family violence programs. I developed two, one in Fort Bend County, Texas, and that also included a rape crisis program. And I say family violence because it's both men and women. I don't discriminate. I can't with the feather teaching, right? We're one. And then I also developed one in North Los Angeles County in California. Yes, I know Nicole Brown Simpson very well, so take from that what you would. And so I spent years working in that field for mostly women and children. We did have a few men victims. Women aren't angels. Okay, we have our issues too. The thing about me that's important, I think, and some of you already know this, and some of you have the same kind of spiritual underpinning, in that I'm considered an intuitive empath, which means I'm extremely sensitive to energies and people's personalities and dispositions. And, you know, that's a spiritual gift. And along with my psychotherapy training, which taught me how to read body language and patterns and things that most people don't pay attention to. So I can be quite intimidating, and I realize that. But on the other side, it can be quite loving. And I kid around sometimes, but I tell, and I've told Mitika, I said, I have owl medicine. You really don't want to mess with me because I can see through darkness. I can see deceit. I can fly silently around you and know what's going on, at least to some degree. Well, in the Yucatan, that I don't know how to say this, that became even stronger in that, as some of you are aware, and I've talked about it, I received jaguar medicine, which is similar in a way, but much, much stronger and much, much more in depth. And since I came back from the Yucatan, the part of the jaguar medicine, which is the dark side, that takes you into the depths of your soul, I equate it with doing shadow work in Jungian psychology, looking at the parts of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge or don't want to deal with. And instead, what you do is you project them on other people. Well, of course, as a therapist, that's not a good thing. So, what do therapists do when they hit a mark like that? Well, they see their own therapist. At least that's what I do. And I've been studying jaguar medicine, both the underworld side and the above world side, and trying to find the balance. And maybe I wasn't doing it fast enough because I did have that collapse on Monday. It was like I felt like God was saying, "Okay, now stop and listen." So I did, and I have. And so I came to the point that I had to let go of some things that were stressing me out, like travel and teaching doesn't stress me out, but the reactions stress me out. And as you can imagine, with my background of 40 years working in women's issues mostly, I've not been very well received a good part of the time. And especially coming from the tribal point of view, when I talk about matrilineal necessities and our matrilineal society and what it's going to take in the feather teaching for men and women to be balanced with each other. That is very often not well received. Sometimes it is. Women especially like it. Go figure. Because I try to empower them. That's my whole thing, is to empower women to raise up to their God-given place, which is beside the man, not above him, not below him, but beside him as a full-fledged partner. And reading the Torah about the creation, where man and woman were created as one, back to back, not from a rib like what's been translated by the King's Version, it makes more sense to me. And it empowers me in the feather teaching to go forth. So, what's the third part of the feather teaching? What is it about that I won't be the sacrificial lamb on the altar men worship themselves on? Well, for a long time now, and recently, I've been told, mostly by men actually, that I had to personally accept and tolerate and do things that violate my sense of integrity, of who I am, and of the 7 grandfather teachings. This has been going on for years, but it happened recently too. And I think that collapse told me that I'm done trying to adjust and maneuver around this type of misogynistic thinking. Now, remember this. Remember this. The female side provides the guidance and the wisdom and the teachings and the raising of the children, and the addresses the wants and needs of the tribe. And that's our role. And side by side, the men carry out those things. They're the ones that execute what the women have decided. And in the middle of that, like I've said before, are the 7 grandfather teachings. These are what have to be operational in order for both sides to work together. If you don't have courage, respect, wisdom, humility, honesty, love, and truth, this can't work. So what happens when a relationship starts to break down? And why I would say I'm not going to be the sacrificial lamb. Okay? So I'm going to get a little technical about this from a psychological point of view to help illustrate what I'm talking about. What causes a relationship breakdown? It really doesn't matter if it's between a man or a woman, or between friends or family, or acquaintances, nations. The cause is the same. And the cause is the breakdown. That the 7 grandfather teachings are not being employed, or both sides aren't working to employ them. Okay? This has to be a mutually agreed upon trail. If one side's working on it and the other side isn't, it's going to break down. That the 7 grandfather teachings are so central to our spiritual life that we must be aware of them at all times. And that's what Jaguar medicine is about. Because if there's anything in your life that needs healing in any of these 7 grandfather ways, then it's incumbent upon all of us to work on that and to be mindful of that and to not project our unhealed selves onto our partners or another person or another country or another nation. We've seen too much of that. You all know that. That's what the trip to the Yucatan was about, was to heal that north-south, east-west trail and get our nations, our indigenous nations, on the same page, which we accomplished. That's huge. Totally huge. Okay. And everything I've gone through lately in regards to that has been well worth it. I wouldn't change a thing. Because I kept my eyes on the mission. The mission meant more to me. And the 7 grandfather teachings meant more to me until it became too much for me. So, the relationship breakdowns occurs because of a breach of the 7 grandfather teachings. But what causes that breach? Again, easily not working on them jointly. Okay? And the main cause of that is what in psychology we call narcissism. Now that word's being thrown around a lot, and not in a good way. Because narcissism is neither all bad or all good. Okay? What narcissism is, and everybody has it, okay? You can't point to people and say, you have narcissism without 3 fingers pointing back at you. Okay? Everybody has a level of narcissism. And what narcissism is the part of ourselves that have self-love, self-appreciation, a sense of self-worth, self-protection. Okay? It's a healthy sense of who we are, especially from the spiritual point of view. Remember Only Chagwan. We're spirits lowered. We're all equal that way. Okay? Especially in Creator's eyes. And that's how we need to see ourselves. That's healthy narcissism. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is unhealthy narcissism. Okay? An unhealthy narcissism is when one or both party values themselves and their own needs, desires over the other person or country in the relationship. If one of these overshadows the other, there's no balance. Eagle can't fly. And as a marriage counselor, I see this all the time when people come for marriage counseling. That is the breakdown, that someone's narcissism is overshadowing the relationship and that their needs and wants become primary, even over the relationship or the other person. That, if you think about relationships that you've had and lost, think about it from that perspective and it starts to make sense. That's not sustainable. It's not sustainable psychologically, it's not sustainable physically or spiritually. Okay? So when I say I'm not going to be the sacrificial lamb on the altar that men worship themselves on, that's my fight against misogyny. That's my fight against being told. And women, check yourselves. You've probably been told the same things. That your feelings, your thoughts, your needs, your wants, your desires are secondary. They're secondary. Don't believe it. That's a lie. They're primary together with the 7 grandfather teachings operation. And in everything that I've done, I've tried to empower women to take their rightful place. That's been my life work. Even though I've worked with men, of course, I don't discriminate. I worked offshore for many years in the drilling industry, mostly men, doing critical incident stress management to help them through death and destruction, which is pretty common in the offshore industry. Every offshore regulation is written in someone's blood, we like to say. So it was my job to go there and help get them back on their feet after one of their people had been killed or maimed. Probably the one that I did that most people can relate to is the Deepwater Horizon incident, the Gulf oil spill. I worked for Transocean for that for 3 months, trying to deal with the effects of that. It was earth-shattering for everybody. I've done other things like that. I've done the Santa Fe High School shooting, the Fort Hood shooting, just various cop shootings because I developed a program in Fort Bend County, Texas to do it for the police in general, but specifically under the auspices of the Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office. Did that for 12 years. So healing has always been my calling. I know I don't heal people, but I can provide for people an avenue or a pathway that they can travel for their own healing if they choose to take it. I can't make them take it, obviously. I would sometimes light a fire under them. I've lit a few fires recently as well. But that's kind of my history. So, one of the ways that you can tell that this is out of balance and that some narcissism is out of whack, okay, is that the relationship will fall into one of 2 categories. There'll be a victim and a villain. Okay? the victim will feel justified in vilifying the villain and making it all their fault and not being willing to take any responsibility for what the main issues are. Okay. Then there's the villain. I've been the villain in many stories. Okay, because I expose deception. That's part of what I do. That's part of a therapeutic job too. Not just a grandmother telling people where they're kind of off center, off balance. People don't want to hear that. So you become the villain. And I've learned not to take that personally because I understand the dynamics of what's happening. And I hope to empower those listening to understand those dynamics too. Because the victim-villain dynamic is a lie. Okay? The truth is, one or both of the parties involved fell off the center line. So the only way back is to get back on the center line by being willing to do your shadow work, as Carl Jung called it. Look at the parts of yourself that you'd rather not. Look at the parts of yourself that you disown and project onto other people, their motives and their thoughts, you know, without really any evidence. You make up evidence. And in my practice, and especially doing marriage counseling, that dynamic was very, very common. And unless and until we could break through that, there really was no hope. Some things have to come to an end. Okay. So once again, I hope that this part 3 gives you all the message not to be a sacrificial lamb. That's not what the Bible teaches. That's not what Jesus taught. When I did my thesis, one of the hard things was to find historical records of the women, you know, that he literally ordained in the ministry. Most are familiar with Mary Magdalene, the women by the well, the Samaritan woman. You know, I just drew a blank. And such things as that. And you have to account. You have to account for that. You just can't dismiss it and say, this is all hogwash. You know. And you can't turn it upside down. You cannot turn the matriarchal lines upside down and make the men more significant than the women. This won't fly. You've got a ground eagle, which is, those of you that were at the convention know, is a turkey. Okay. If an eagle can't fly, it's a ground eagle, which is actually a turkey, meaning it's out of balance somewhere and needs to regain their balance and take a good hard look at themselves, spiritually especially. And now that I have jaguar medicine, that's becoming even more and more evident for me. Which is why I say it's time for me to reevaluate a lot of different things. But I hope that helps in some way of understanding. Again, every time I do this, I can only scratch the surface, because really this is like a 7-day seminar if I was to do the whole thing. So we'll see if Spirit wants me to teach more or move in another direction. Right now I can't say. I'm still physically trying to heal myself, and with God's help, that's coming around, and we'll see where we go from here. In the meantime, I'm still here. You know, I welcome your comments. I welcome your posts, your messages, but just please realize that I'm not on my phone 24/7. I'm not at my computer 24/7. Right now, especially, I've got a lot of things I have to do for myself and appointments to keep and tests to go through. And I'm trying to pace myself. So if you write or comment, just be a little patient, please. I think that's all I have to say today. Just want you to know I'm okay. I'm on the road to healing. Giving you some reasons why I had to give up my role as a chief grandmother. I'm in touch with Adriana and them to be in the background in some other way, and I'll let y'all know what that's going to look like if it looks like anything. So, Chi Miigwech for listening. Pamape.